Welcome, fam. It is episode 2 This Week in Cricket. I'm so excited to come to you. My name is Sunil. Thank you so much for tapping into So Real Sports Talk. We have my co-host to that side, Waruna. Welcome, Waruna. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good. As always, I'm pretty excited to just talk cricket.
I love it, man. Well, we have a lot to talk about, so let's get straight to it. So to start out, we got some pretty exciting news this week as far as cricket. The IPL has stated that they are coming back in September, which is very, very exciting. They were only able to finish about half the season beforehand, so we didn't know if they were going to come back. They have decided to come back in September. So how do you feel about that, Waruna? We're going to get to see a full tournament and crown either a new champ or a defending champ. How do you feel about that?
I think it would be exciting, especially for the players who are playing in the T20 World Cup, because this tournament happening in almost the same venues as the T20 World Cup venues. So the players from England, West Indies, along with all these Indian players, because Indian team, I don't think right now, if we take today, they have a clear idea who are going to be the 50 who make the squad for the World Cup. Not because they are bad, because they are so good. Because if you looked at the performance of the young Indian side in Sri Lanka against the ODI series and also the T20 series, it was amazing. The veteran Mumbai Indians players like Surya Kumar Yadav, he was the best player out there in the T20 tournament, one-day tournament. Then Prithvi Shaw, Sanju Samson, the bowlers, Bhuvaneshwar Kumar, he led from the front, and Krunal Pandya, Rahul Chahar, Deepak Chahar. You can basically list all the 15 players. They got various times. They got the chance to play. So all these players are exciting. And Shikhar Dhawan, he's back in form. But I don't think Shikhar Dhawan will find a place in Indian T20 World Cup squad, because they have Rohit Sharma at the big top, Rishabh Pant. So there is a lot of excitement. So I think it would be especially for Indian team, the players, it would be a good platform to showcase what they can do. So I think it will be more competitive tournament, because these players will know if they perform well in IPL, they will have a chance to get into that final 15 of the T20 World Cup.
Yeah, so it's pretty interesting to see how it goes. Now, the T20 World Cup, that's after? I think that's before, correct?
Now it's actually happening after. T20 World Cup is happening almost right after the IPL is done.
Oh, okay. So it's not happening in August anymore?
So it's actually October.
October. Okay, beautiful.
Yeah.
So that is good. So that's going to be the last time to showcase, and maybe not only for the India squad, but for all of the squads. There's a lot of good players that could maybe fortify their position. A lot of West Indies players play in the IPL. Obviously, a lot of English players. So everybody's going to be rounding out, and this would give. We thought earlier last week we talked about how with India they're going to have maybe a leg up, because they're going to be, their full team is going to know the conditions. And now this might even it out a little bit, because there's going to be quite a bit of players from other teams that will be very familiar with the surface and the pitches and things of that nature. So it'll make the T20 World Cup more exciting overall. But there was some pretty good matches that came up this week as well. Anything that you wanted to touch on? I know your team, Sri Lanka, got a big victory over India this week. What did you think about that overall, the matchup?
Yes, actually, Sri Lanka managed to give a good fight against the Indian side, but that's not the full Indian side that made to Sri Lanka, because due to that's the strength of India. India now can send their second string side with some top players, but still win against another side. That's the Indian strength. So Indian fans should be, of course, be should happy about that. But having said that, Sri Lanka, had so much of problem, player discipline. That was one of the major things. In past couple of years that we have discussed during the England tour, Niroshanti Kwala, Danushka Gunatilaka, then Kusal Mendes, the senior players of the team, they got suspended. They broke the bio bubble, went out during the night. The stuff, might have forgotten in the past, but you can't do it anymore given the circumstances. So the new players came in, they showed a lot of fight. You could see that they want to win. They did not give up. So the second match, India was 7 down, chasing 270 odd runs, but then finally India got a good 8-wicket partnership on the game. But the final game, Sri Lanka won that game. After ages, Sri Lanka won a game against India. I think probably after 3 years. The last time Sri Lanka beat India was back in 2017 in England, the ICC Champions Trophy. So it's a big victory for Sri Lanka. End of the day, win is a win. It doesn't matter who India played, because you have to play the side that's in front of you. So winning against India, it's a big deal. I think it's a good way to move forward. And today, Sri Lanka won the second T20 game. Now the series is tied 1-1. India is unfortunately, due to this Krunal Pandya's COVID situation, 8 other players, they are quarantined. So they just have 11 players to pick from. Basically, whoever you have, guaranteed the place to the next game. But still, it was a good game. So Sri Lanka came on top. India gave a good fight.
With Sri Lanka, having to play in the play-in tournament in the T20 World Cup, any way that you could gain some confidence going into that is good. So any type of momentum that they could gain in the T20 level is a good thing. Obviously, a lot of young players for Sri Lanka that are trying to make a name for themselves to make that final roster for their team to represent them at the World Cup as well. Anything else that happened this week that you wanted to touch on before we get into our other topics?
Right now, the series between West Indies and Australia is going on. So West Indies won the T20 series 4-1. That shows how much West Indies are capable and strong in T20 format. But the problem is when it comes to one days, it's like hot and cold. Australia won one game, then West Indies won another game. They were like we saw so many batting collapses. So that's a problem with West Indies, especially when it comes to longer formats. They are still unable to rotate strike, let their big strikers to come at the end and build, just score 80, 100 runs in last 10 overs, because they always sometimes struggle at the middle overs. They don't score these singles that sides like India, England are really good at. So that in a way, West Indies has to go a long way to become a good 50-over side. But on the other hand, Australia had a big blow. Aaron Finch went home injured. So he is not going to play the Bangladesh series. So if Aaron Finch is not going to play T20 World Cup, let alone forget about the IPL and other commitments, it will be a disaster for Australia, because Steven Smith already, I would say 99% sure not to play the T20 World Cup. When you don't have Steven Smith plus Aaron Finch, most probably for the World Cup, I'm not sure how Australia are going to recover from that.
And we'll get into more detail about the team later on in the show, but definitely some big blows. But I think the biggest thing that's happening in cricket is obviously the India versus England test match. So, obviously those are two powerhouses right now, probably, the two most complete sides in the world right now. So tell us what you think about, this match overall. It's being played in England, so they do have home field advantage, but this is going to be a five match test match, correct?
Yes, 5-match test series. So it's one thing to note about is India usually, I mean, in the past, 10 years ago, India didn't play this 5 match test series. Usually they would play 3 match test series. But right now, India is playing this 4 match test series, 5 match test series. I think it's good for cricket because, end of the day, test cricket, the gap is really large. For example, the best sides in Test cricket versus, let's say, sixth or seventh ranked team playing, if they play at home, you can almost predict the results. But in the shorter versions, I mean, white ball versions, that gap has reduced, especially in T20. Most of the time, any team, given the day, if a player or two performs well, can beat a stronger side. So if test cricket to be remain interesting, the top sides should play more matches. So I like this idea. India playing 5 test matches instead of 3 versus England. Almost it's like similar to Ashes. Ashes, you have 5 matches. So Ashes is like the pinnacle of Test cricket. So this series coming into the picture is good for Test cricket because we can guarantee that there will be a good fight because these two sides, and right now the way England, they are the world champions in 50 over formats, so they are always trying to get better in other formats. They want to be the number one side. India already proved that, right? At the moment, I believe India is, in terms of all 3 formats, India is the most complete side, dominant side in the world. Mm-hmm. So these two sides have a lot of pride to play for. So it is not going to be just an ordinary series. So I think, and again, this series is named after Pataudi, one of the greats of Indian cricket and world cricket. So there's a lot to play for. I think it's going to be a very exciting series.
So who do you think would be favored? You know, obviously India just came off of a tough loss to New Zealand. England has a lot of momentum. You know, they're a few years removed or 1 year removed from being World Cup champions in one day. So England as well is a very well-rounded team. They have, you know, pretty much no weaknesses in any part of their game. So what do you expect will be the strategy? Who do you think is going to be favored? And how do you expect this to turn out?
Okay. So first of all, I would say, I would begin saying with India would be the favorites, even though the matches are played in England. Prior to the the Test Championship, England played 2 Test matches against New Zealand. So they lost one game, they lost a series. Now, yes, India coming after a loss in the World Test Championship final, but that match was played in June. So June is still even at the very beginning of the summer. So we saw how the pitches and weather behaved. So New Zealand had the advantage with their swing bowlers. So the game, neither team scored 250 runs in one inning. But here it comes late in the summer. The pitches are going to be dry, and it will give the advantage to India because this Indian side is a very complete side. If you take the fast bowling, you have Jasprit Bumrah, then you have Ishant Sharma, you have Mohammad Shami. So 3 main fast bowlers. And other than that, they have like Mohammad Siraj. So Umesh Yadav, when given the chance, he can bowl very well. He's a tireless bowler. He's a workhorse. So and I think we discussed that point in our last segment as well. These fast bowlers, they have the mentality of hunting as a pack. That's why Australian fast bowlers were really good. They at the time they were doing really well because the fast bowlers need to make sure that they are supporting each other. One shouldn't try too hard to take wickets on his own. If that happens, if that bowler gets tired, the batting team can attack that bowler. So these four fast bowlers, they know, they have played a lot within themselves, so they know. And you have the advantage, Ravichandra Ashwin. I mean, Ashwin is not just a bowler who can contain the batsman, he can take wickets. Right now, Australians consider Nathan Lyon is the best spinner in the world, but I don't agree with that because Ravichandra Ashwin is the best spinner, in the Test cricket world right now.
Let me ask you a question. For India, obviously having the depth that they have, would you use this as an opportunity against a quality side like England to maybe test out some of these younger stars that are up and coming, or would you just send out your A team, knowing that it's such a big rivalry between India and England? You just put your best foot forward and try to get the victory. How would you approach this, and what do you think India is going to do as far as the type of side that they bring?
Definitely the best side, the A++ side that they can put forward. Because even if we look at the squad, India has specialist batsmen with Pujara, Ajinkya Rahane. Virat Kohli, of course. We don't have to talk about him. And India brought up Surya Kumar Yadav and Prithvi Shaw to the squad. They were not originally in the squad at the beginning, which traveled to England, but based on their performance in Sri Lanka, now they have been added because they had some injuries to Washington Sundar, Shubman Gill, and Avesh Khan. But they have basically picked up the best side. And players like KL Rahul, I'm not sure Rahul will get a place in the final 11, but if he gets a place, he would be exciting. Again, you have Rishabh Pant and some other players that we don't even bring into the discussion. Players like Hanuma Vihari. Hanuma Vihari is a very good player. As far as I remember, he played well in Australia, where he made his debut. So this team, I believe, is the best team that they have traveled to England. In terms of what they can put forward. And that's what they should do, because this is about pride, nothing else. This is about pride, because England, they are trying to be the best all-round team in terms of every format, because they have won, as you said, they have won the last 50-over World Cup, and they have very big ambitions for the T20 World Cup that is upcoming. And they missed the opportunity. They missed the chance of playing the finals in the Test Championship finals. I think that's a big blow for England, because England always used to be the strong. Their strongest suit was the Test matches, but they couldn't get into the World Test Championship final. It was New Zealand versus India, so they have to prove something. So I think that's the best thing. India is not taking any chances. That attitude is something I am seeing from these Indian sides. I'm not saying that past Indian sides were weak, but there is a new mentality, especially under Virat Kohli. All these sides, they always go for kill. So I believe, as a prediction, I would say India would at least win 3 Test matches out of 5.
Wow. So you expect India to be dominant.
Yes.
England, on the other hand, how do you feel as far as the type of team that they'll bring? Obviously, you're saying that they're going to be motivated. They have some momentum behind them, but you still feel like they're going to fall a little bit short.
Yes. The one thing is, most of these players now have to play Ashwin. Especially if India decided, one thing really interesting would be the Indian strategy in terms of whether they will play 5 bowlers as they did against the New Zealand, the World Test Championship final, or go with 4 bowlers and 6 batsmen, 1 wicket keeper. If Rishabh Pant keeps, then they can just at least go with 6 batsmen, maybe 5 bowlers. But anyway, that team will going to make a lot of pressure on England batting lineup, because during last few games, if you even when England played in Sri Lanka, Joe Root was the main difference between the two sides. So if India can maintain Joe Root, uh, these games will be really tough for England. Yes, England have some, batsmen. They have Johnny Bairstow in the squad, Josh Butler. Then they have Hasib Hamid. Hasib Hamid is an up and coming player. Uh, then they have Ollie Pope, players like that. Ben Stokes, of course, would be coming back. But still, I don't think um, England have a strong batting lineup. Even in England, if you compare the two batting lineups, India is better. India would have been weak if this series was played in early part of the summer, last part of the spring. Like if this series started in mid-May and I played until end of June, England would have that advantage, home advantage, because this pitches swinging, the weather is always some kind of rainy weather, so the air will give you the swing. You have James Anderson, Stuart Broad, James Anderson, Stuart Broad. So you can dominate. You can try to dominate India with the fast bowlers. But right now, you don't. You can't dominate India with just fast bowlers. You need spinners. But these spinners right now, they are scored. They have Dom Best, Jack Leach. Sri Lanka struggled against these spinners, but I don't think India will struggle this again. I mean, that's the truth, because Indian batsmen, even if you saw what Sanju Samson did in Sri Lanka, the way he played Sri Lankan spinners, he was not afraid to come down the wicket. He would just play the spinners over the extra cover, because playing inside out is difficult. That shows you playing a good shot against right-hander, playing an inside out over the extra cover fielder means that's a quality batsman. Sanju Samson not only coming down the track and playing the spinners, he could sweep the ball strongly down to the square leg boundary. So all these Indian players, they are really comfortable playing against the spin. So I don't think England can take wickets with spinners. They can only try to contain Indian batsmen, but still I'm not sure how successful that strategy will be, because other thing would be England does not have many fast bowlers who would bowl at 150, even though they have fast bowlers. James Anderson, again,
Archer.
Yes, Archer is not sure to play in this tournament due to his injury. So England will miss him. They have Stuart Broad, but Stuart Broad is not anymore the bowler who bowls 140, 145. So they have limited speeds right now. I mean, of course, with the age, their speed has reduced. Ben Stokes is there, but given that team, I do not think that they can give a too much headache to India. So even at the beginning of the series, India should feel really comfortable knowing that the level and quality of the side they are facing.
Beautiful. I like it. Well, let's switch gears. Obviously, we are a few months, maybe 3 months away from the T20 World Cup. So let's go ahead and do a little preview of what we think these teams are going to look like. And we'll start with Group 1. I'm looking at Group 1 like the group of death. There's some quality sides. Whomever comes out of this side is definitely going to have to earn it because of the talent. So let's go first with Australia. Now, Australia, like you said earlier, doesn't necessarily have the same kind of, fear that they place in people's heart when it comes to the T20 side. but they're perennially a team that has been known for having dominant bowling, being just a well-rounded team overall. Amin is jumping in saying Australia is his favorite team. However, Waruna, you feel like Australia actually isn't that going to be that good in this tournament. Tell us why you feel like Australia isn't a side that is going to do well in this tournament, and why you feel like maybe they're one of the weaker teams in this group.
Yeah. The first thing is, now for some reason Australia was struggling to understand this game, T20 game, because the only time that Australia made a big progress in a major T20 tournament was back in 2010, basically 11 years ago, when the tournament was played at West Indies. They came to the final but still lost to England. So that was England's first major tournament silverware. So that team was fully loaded with some very good cricketers. Guys like Michael Hussey was there. So they had the advantage. But after that, if we take the tournaments, that World Cups that were played, 2012 played in Sri Lanka, 2014 Bangladesh, 2016 India, and again this is hosted by India. The World Cup is happening in Asia.
Right.
So in past 3 World Cups, Australia didn't make it to even semi-finals. So always they would struggle against the spin. That's the first thing. Yes, they do have some big game players like Glenn Maxwell. Then they have Aaron Finch, Steve Smith. But out of these 3 names, Steve Smith for sure will miss the World Cup due to his injury. So that's what I read through the reports, that it's very slim chance that he's making to the T20 World Cup, because they want to focus on his recovery for the Ashes coming up. Because for Australia, it feels like most probably Steve Smith is much needed for the Ashes rather than trying to risk him with the T20 World Cup. Aaron Finch, he was playing in West Indies series, got injured when he's going home, so he is going to miss the Bangladesh series. Not sure he will come back. So there is a big gap of quality for this Australian team when it comes to playing in subcontinent, because this is not the Australian teams that we were used to in the old days, because you always had like players like Matthew Hayden, Adam Gilchrist, Ponting, who could play in any subcontinent conditions and score runs. But most of these players, they on paper they would look like they are a good side. Some of these players have experience in IPL, and there were some players, for example, who did really well. James Faulkner had some very good series in India for Australian side, but he is not in the picture right now. So looking at this squad, yes, they do have Mitchell Starc, Ashton Agar, and Matthew Wade. They have Adam Sampa. Adam Sampa gonna be their main leg spinner, but I'm not sure he can pose a major threat, especially to the teams that are going to play well against the spin. Because if you take the teams in this group, they have West Indies. So West Indies, what they are going to do is they will block one ball and hit the next ball out of the park.
Right.
So sometimes you might bowl one guy who would bowl 3 overs in a stretch, a very good economical, let's say 3 overs, 20 runs. He goes for the 4th over. Chris Gayle might be there, just biding his time, waiting for the kill. He would hit 3-4 sixes, and that guy is ruined. So most probably they will make it to the I wouldn't say they will make it to the semi-finals. They would finish up at most like 3rd or 4th position in this group.
Wow, that's saying a lot. Now, the next team we have in the group is South Africa. Now, I think I'm a little higher on South Africa than you are. I feel like they have pretty strong bowling with obviously Rabada, but I think they have some other depth in their pace bowling that could play a role. Obviously, Quinton de Kock is fantastic T20 batsman, wicketkeeper, and has shown a lot of success there. I think in a format like this, having some stars, couple star batting guys, couple star bowling guys, which I believe South Africa has, gives you that ability to get hot at the right time and actually create some upsets. So I think South Africa is one of my dark horses in the tournament. Now, obviously, they are in the group of death, going up against the type of teams that they have to in England and West Indies here. But what do you think about the overall South African team? Although they are young, how do you think? What do you think their strengths are? What do you think their weaknesses are? And how do you think they'll fend in this group?
Yes, again, South Africa is a team that I don't think going to advance beyond this group, not making it to the semifinals. Because again, the reason is during past World Cups, they were unable to make real progress. The last time they made to major tournament semi-final was 2015 World Cup, happened in England and Australia, where they met New Zealand. Again, shocked in a heartbreaker, they lost the semi-finals against eventual runners-up New Zealand. So South Africa, historically, they have that tendency to lose the key moments. Even the 2011 World Cup, South Africa was doing pretty well. Then come the quarterfinal time, New Zealand came out. They were losing. The game was, I think, game was played in Mumbai. South Africa was actually winning. They were chasing, I think, 220 or something runs. Very modest total, but they choked. And New Zealand won the game and basically made it out to the semi-finals against Sri Lanka. So that's why it's hard to take South Africa seriously. Again, now Imran Tahir, I don't think he's going to come back to international side and play again. And I'm not sure whether Faf du Plessis is going to play. If du Plessis plays, that will give them an advantage. But the problem is, when it comes to du Plessis, I believe he has lost his sip, his energy, and he's like, I would say 50%, 60% the batsman that he used to be. If he's good, South Africa can give a good fight. For example, I remember it was either 2012 or 2014 World Cup, T20 World Cup. South Africa did beat India in group format. That was thanks to Faf du Plessis, because du Plessis has lot of experience playing in IPL under MS Dhoni in Chennai Super Kings. So he knows what he is doing. So he could do that. But this side, you said yes, they have Quinton de Kock, but their captain Temba Bavuma is a talented player, but I'm not sure how he is going to cope with these Asian conditions, these subcontinent conditions. So they might give some scare here and there, but again, they might end up being the third or fourth place team, because I don't see there are many good spinners in this time. Keshav Maharaj is there, more of a test bowler. So again, I'm not pretty much impressed with South Africa going forward in the tournament.
We shall see. This is one we'll keep our eye on, because I do think that they're going to play pretty well, and I think they're going to be a tough out for these other teams. I mean, obviously, England and West Indies are by far the favorites in this group, but I think South Africa, if one of those teams stumble, can be the one that sneaks in there. And just in this format only, I think that in T20 they have the type of stars that can, if everything goes their way, actually make a run for it. But let's get to the favorites in the group. We'll start with England. Obviously, we talked a little bit about England with with the test match coming up, but their T20 team is actually pretty formidable. They have stars up and down the roster in both batting, fielding, and as well as bowling. So tell me a little bit about what you think about this England side. What do you think their strengths are going to be? What type of side they're going to bring to the tournament, and how well you think they're going to do overall?
Yes, I think England is one of tournament favorites in my opinion. Basically, I have three tournament favorites: England, India, and West Indies. So there might be another team who will make the semifinals, but England, they already have the depth that they need, because if, the one thing is most of these England players they play in the IPL, because now if you take the current situation in the IPL, it used to be at the very beginning of the IPL, it used to be Australia, Sri Lanka, Pakistan are the hot commodities, the players who came and played in the IPL. From the England, it was players like Kevin Peterson, Andrew Flintoff, only 2 or 3 players getting the chance to play in the IPL. But now the situation has reversed entirely. Now you see England players are the most valued or most the players that IPL teams going after. So you have from Moeen Ali, even during the first half of the IPL, he had a very good time with bat and ball. Then they have Jofra Archer. I'm not sure, given his injury concerns, whether he's going to play or not. But they have Johnny Bairstow, Josh Butler, and Liam Livingston. He played really well against Pakistan. Jason Roy, we cannot forget about him. At the top, he can score quick 50. So that would be enough. If you score quick 50 runs in 30 balls, that would change the momentum. Then when it comes to bowlers, they have bowlers who can bowl in this format 140, 145k. Guys like Mark Wood, David Willey, he is a very good bowler, left armer. Then you have Karan brothers. So they have IPL experience. And especially, even in these conditions, the Asian conditions, the games will be played under lights, and first 5 to 6 overs, there might be some assistance from the conditions where you can swing the ball. So David Willey is really good at that. Karan brothers, they can do that. So they can sneak up early wickets here and there, so they can contain the other teams. So I believe they have a very balanced squad. The other thing is Joe Root won't make this squad. Joe Root is one of the star batsmen in the cricket world, but in the T20 format, he can't find a place in this English lineup. So that speaks the volume of talent white ball cricket English team has built over last 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, and I mean, it's hard to deny, obviously, when we talk about India and how they have, all of these stars in the IPL. Obviously, their whole team is coming from the IPL. Pretty much up and down that roster on the England team, all of those guys are stars in the IPL as well. So if you are looking at a squad that is going to be able to contend with a side like India, obviously England is there. So they are going to be exciting. I think both of us agree they're probably coming out of this group if they play up to potential. And we can move on to the next team, which I think is the favorite in this group, and that is the West Indies. Obviously, the West Indies, this is their format. They have won the most times in the T20 World Cup. This is the format that plays to their strengths. They have, some of the most powerful batsmen, some of the most powerful bowlers. However, one thing about this team is, they are getting up there as far as age. So how do you feel like the West Indies are going to fare? Do you think that what type of squad do they bring? Do you think that they bring, the guys, they're all all these players that we know are like in their 40s, reaching 40s, or do you think they bring, a young squad to the tournament? How do you think they do overall?
Yes, I think West Indies, if I have to like take the number one team as the favorites who might win the World Cup, I would pick West Indies because they are tied with England and India, but they might have the slight edge. The reason is this: 2012 they won the T20 World Cup in Sri Lanka, beating Sri Lanka in the finals. 2014 they reached the semi-finals, lost to Sri Lanka in the rain-affected game in Bangladesh. 2016 the semi-finals, India scored 182 as far as I remember, a very good score at Wankhede Stadium. But West Indies started slowly, they kept their cool and eventually got to the target and went into win the World Cup. So during last three World Cups, they have already won two. So they know what to do because the one thing is 2012 finals, Sri Lanka was doing really well. The bowlers were doing good when West Indies batted first. Marlon Samuels came out. He played a blinder against Lasith Malinga. He attacked Lasith Malinga basically. Mm-hmm. Nobody expected that. We were shocked. What's happening? Lasith Malinga was on a good form. He was containing the batsman, taking wickets. Against England, he took 5 wickets in a group game in that tournament. Malinga was attacked. Then come the chasing Sunil Narine and West Indies. They have capable spinners in this format, and they sucked the energy out of Sri Lankan innings, and they eventually came out as the winners. And not only the spinners, West Indies have fast bowlers who are well suited to this format because they have guys like Dwayne Bravo. Bravo is not express. He bowls 120, maximum 125, 130, but he can bowl at 100, 110 as well. So he mix up these deliveries. So he comes in, bowls his 4 overs, usually always under 25, 30 runs. And if you do that, that takes a lot of effort from the batting team, because if you try to attack Dwayne Bravo, then you are going to struggle because you are going to lose wickets. Then, of course, the big hitters, Pollard, Andrew Russell, Chris Gayle, even at 41 years old, he played the tournament against Australia. He got a 50 after a long time. So I believe Chris Gayle might play. Then they have other players who can hold the innings together. So that's why players like Evan Lewis, they can hold the inning together. Then Jason Holder, we don't even talk about Jason Holder. He's a very good player. He can bowl, he can bat. So this is an all-round team. They have Lendl Simmons, who will open most probably. So the other advantages in T20 format, they can just block a one ball and hit the other ball. So that's their format or style of playing. They always take time, not worrying, but they know hard hitters, even they have to score 50 runs in last 3 overs. It's game on for West Indies. So Absolutely. That's their strength.
Yeah, and they have, extremely dominant bowlers. I mean, you didn't even mention Cottrell, who obviously, it does really, really well at T20. And they have, really consistent batsmen too, and a guy like Nicholas Pooran, who, can, might even be either, opening for them or, in that top 4 as far as batsmen that could, get you 30, 40 runs and calm down the lineup. If, he is kind of that counterbalance to the guys like Pollard and Chris Gayle, who are all power hitters. Pooran is there who can hit power, but also, keep the side under control if he needs to as well. So, I agree with you. I think West Indies is an extremely tough team to beat. Not only have they shown a lot of success here, some of the players that are on their team were part of those championship teams at the T20 World Cup as well. So they have the experience, they have the leadership, plus they have, the talent to really be a force to be reckoned with. So I believe they're the hands down favorite to come out of this group, probably make the finals. But overall, this group is going to be tough. Some of the best matchups are going to come out of this group, and it's going to be interesting to see, if a team like South Africa can make it, or will it just be the favorites in West Indies and England that come out and dominate the way that they can. But that's pretty much what we got for the show. Anything else that you wanted to touch on, Varuna?
Actually, Amin asked a question that which team do you think will do better, England or New Zealand? Of course, England, because New Zealand, yes, they are doing well in test and 50-over formats, but when it comes to T20, they don't have the enough resources that the players who will dominate or big hitters. So England, of course, far ahead as a complete team. So England, look out! They are going to make it to the semi-finals. And the funny thing is, now this group, you have England and West Indies. So either of these teams gonna be the second place team.
Right.
So this team will going to play a semi-finals against India, who will come most probably as the number one team from the other group. So that's where it's going to be a hard take for Indian fans, because even last time India were doing really good, but West Indies eventually ended their T20 World Cup dreams at Wankhede Stadium. So that would be tough for India. Actually, it would have been good for India if they were in this group alongside, let's say, England were on the other group, and West Indies and India were on this group. Then they might have played an easier team from the other group who finishes second. But here it's going to be the semi-final for India. That would be the key matchup. It will be either England or West Indies.
Yeah, it's going to be important. Clearly just making the top two isn't going to be good enough. You got to get that top position to try to get, quote unquote, the easier route to the finals, right? So lot to talk about. Next week, we're actually going to focus on Group 2, which obviously has India, Pakistan, and New Zealand and all of them. So we'll go into that next week. But thank you, Varuna, for coming on the show. Great job once again. Everybody, we will be live next Wednesday, same time, 8 o'clock. Until then, keep it so real. Have a great night, guys.
Have a good